His name? Kurt Thomas. His title, 3-time world gymnastics champion. His assignment? A secret mission for the United States government. His only weapon? Himself. And that's all he needs. Combine the discipline, the timing, and the power of gymnastics with the explosive force of karate. And a new, all-powerful martial art is born. Gymkata. Kurt Thomas becomes Jonathan Cabot. He must penetrate a mountain fortress to compete in an ancient savage ritual. They call it the game. But nobody wins. And nobody lives. Until now. When gymnastics and karate are fused, the combustion becomes an explosion. And a new kind of martial arts superhero is born. Gymkata.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast and iTunes on podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Del Vecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Meyer. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey, friends.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that are going to New York Comic Con this year, hopefully you've gotten your passes recently, and I am so excited. When the passes come, it seems more real, and then the anticipation builds, and I'm just in that slight state of both happiness and anxiousness until I get to New York. So all of you out there, hopefully you've gotten your badges. If not, they're coming soon, and it's going to be a good time.
Well, Mark, don't get too excited because I hold your passes. They're currently at my house.
I know I have to fulfill your, was it trials of whatever Achilles had to go through?
Hercules, yeah.
Hercules, yeah.
You have to clean my stables. You have to fight some mythical monsters. And then I will bequeath those to you.
All right. I
Unless
got
he
to start
finds
training.
Unless Dan finds a good street price for Comic-Con tickets.
Yeah, maybe I need to do some handstands up some stairs, and just to be ready.
Mark, if you can do handstands up the stairs, not only will I give you the passes, I will pay. I will pay for your entire trip.
Well, you got 25 days-ish or less to hone your Gymkata skills.
Yes.
So. But speaking of Gymkata, we have a guest this week. He is the editor of Screen Crush and a huge Gymkata fan. Welcome to the show, Matt Singer. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Oh, my pleasure. I'm not sure why you're having me on this show about bad movies when we're talking about Gymkata, but nonetheless, I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. But before we get into the movie, I just wanted to, tell us a little bit about. I know you're working, or you have worked on it. It's coming out soon. You have a book coming out, so why don't you get a chance to plug that?
Okay, yeah, it's called Gymkata, Why I Love Gymkata and All Things Gymkata by Matt Singer. No, my book, which I don't think has a single mention of Gymkata in it. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I should have snuck one in somewhere. Like if you, like maybe the first letter of every chapter spells out like Gymkata is great or something like that. But I didn't do that. Now in hindsight, I'm realizing I that was a blunder. But no, the book is it's Opposable Thumbs: How Siskel and Ebert Changed Movies Forever, and it's a book about. The title kind of says it. It's about Siskel and Ebert, the show, the people, the men, Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert, and their lives, their relationship, the show, its influence, its impact. Besides Gymkata, Siskel and Ebert is one of my favorite things ever, and so it was a real labor of love to write it, and it is finally coming out in October, about almost exactly 1 month from when we're recording this. October 24th, the day it goes on sale, where you want to buy a book or an ebook or an audio book. Last weekend I recorded the audio book myself.
Oh, nice.
So if you are listening to this podcast and think, man, this person has an incredible voice, and I would love to hear it for 10 straight hours, you should buy the audiobook specifically. But yeah, there you go. That's it. That's the book.
All right, cool. Yeah, so look out for that. That's awesome. Congratulations, I guess. Yeah. But as you mentioned, your other passion is this week's movie.
Correct.
And that movie
Yes.
is Gymkata. So why don't you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about when you first started watching Gymkata, what you love about it.
Well, I mean, unless we want to do a 10-hour podcast, I think what I love about it would probably, that's a big question to answer. But I mean, in terms of the specifics of where I first saw it, I used to, this would have been either during college or right after college. I had a group of friends, and we used to get together. Okay, I used to have a group of friends. I don't have friends anymore, but this group of friends, we had sort of an unofficial kind of bad movie club group. We would meet pretty regularly, at least once or twice every month, and we would just watch bad movies. That's all we did. And one of the very first times, as a matter of fact, that we did this, one of the movies was Gymkata. One of my best buddies, who I am still friends with, although I guess I don't have any other friends anymore, a gentleman by the name of Chris Marino, who is a very talented comic book artist and cartoonist, and he works out in Hollywood doing a lot of animated series and stuff. But we grew up together, and I think somehow had, I say maybe his dad had returned from a business trip somewhere with like a collection of weird movies on VHS tapes. And one of the movies was Gymkata. And we watched it at one of these bad movie nights, and it was a rousing success. And we all agreed it was not a bad movie. It was one of the greatest films ever made. Yeah, that was it. That's now it's like 20 years ago. That screening was. So yeah, that was the first time, and certainly not the last time that I watched this motion picture.
Okay. Was there any other movie that ever came close to the impact Gymkata had on you during these bad movie screenings, or was it just Gymkata and then everything else?
No, I mean we watched a lot of very enjoyable bad movies. That crew of people. I don't know that there was, obviously, based on my appreciation, I think you tell that this was like the best of the best. But I mean, there was a lot. We watched some very terrible, very enjoyable movies. Think of some of the other ones that got very good responses. The Stabilizer was one that I remember being very popular in that era. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Stabilizer. They're very ridiculous. Vaguely foreign, international, heavily dubbed action movie with stunts that often look like they're not faked, that people might have been murdered on camera. That sort of thing, just totally reckless. That was a very popular one. I'm trying to think what other ones would have been. Yeah, I mean, it's 20 years now, and I've watched so many horrible movies. I was looking through the list of movies you've covered, and certainly a lot of them I had seen.
Okay.
Not all, but certainly many. But yeah, I mean, that's another. For sure, if people, obviously, everyone on the planet knows Gymkata. It's one of the most famous and popular movies of all time. But if people, are looking for a less famous, have you guys seen The Stabilizer? Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Have not.
It was available it was at the time, it had just come out on a DVD from Troma. I actually, at the time, was an intern at Troma Films. So that was how I sort of found it. I actually was turning there when someone discovered, I want to say it was the trailer for the movie, not even the movie itself. We found the trailer for the movie on a beta tape that was a collection of like trailers that Troma owned the rights to, and the guy who was in charge of DVDs at the time was like looking for things like, what should we release, what can we release. And I remember like coming into the office one day and he's like, you have to watch this trailer. And he showed it to me and I was like, you're right. This is the fine, without even seeing the movie. This is one of the greatest motion pictures that has ever been made. And then you watch the movie and it lives up to the trailer. And he immediately worked on a DVD, and not sure where you can watch it now. I still have my DVD all these years later, and I occasionally watch it. I think at one point it was available like on Troma's YouTube channel, so that might be a good place to start. But yes, that is a hilariously bizarre, deranged, unhinged, quote unquote bad, but secretly amazing action movie. So that's one I would definitely endorse wholeheartedly.
Is that kind of like how? Because there was a movie we covered, Surf Nazis Must Die.
Surf Nazis Must Die, sure, of course.
So that was released by Troma. That wasn't made by Troma, correct?
That I don't know. That's before my time there. I'm not entirely sure. It certainly was released by Troma. I'm not sure the provenance of the film. Certainly, Troma, they make movies and they made movies and they also acquired movies. Like I'm fairly certain the Stabilizer was not made by Troma. Somehow through some deal they acquired the rights to release it. I can't understand why anyone else wouldn't want to release that magnificent film, but whatever the circumstance, they acquired those rights. Yeah, Surf Nazis Must Die. I'm not sure if good old Lloyd Kaufman produced that one or merely acquired it. That is certainly another film in the Troma library. Yes,
it's certainly something. That movie is a very interesting movie.
Yeah. Yes. Well, most Troma films are very, very. They're powerful motion pictures. When it was certainly an eye-opening place to intern for 2 summers, not just one. One apparently was not enough. I had to educate myself further in these masterworks of cinema, and I went back a second time and learned so much more. Yeah, I think probably the Stabilizer was released in that year in between, like going there and then coming back. It was like, look, we did it, and here it is. And I was probably the only person who was ever excited that it existed. But I treasure that DVD, and I still have it, as a matter of fact, on my DVD shelf to this.
Yes, some have been known to call Troma the A24 of its day.
Yeah, I can only imagine what Lloyd would. I mean, he's still very much alive, but I haven't spoken to him in a while. But what he would have said to that comparison, I can't. He either would have been flattered or he would have been like, "Yeah, those mother ever, they're the Troma of us." Yeah. Yeah, they wish they had a Toxic Avenger movie.
All right.
That's my Lloyd impression. Yeah. We're here to talk about Troma and the Stabilizer, right? That's what the podcast is about today?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Okay, so here's how so the Stabilizer, his name is John Stabilizer, and he works... No.
Let's break for 2 hours so we could find the Stabilizer and the 3 of us could watch it.
I'll come back someday. When you're ready to talk about the Stabilizer, you have me back, and I'll come and talk some more about this.
Okay, Dan, what about you? Where are you coming from with Gymkata?
I had only ever heard of this movie. This was definitely a movie that had made its rounds on the so bad it's good circuit, like Samurai Cops and was it Miami Connection. So I definitely heard about it. Never saw it, but I'm very glad that I did, because this movie is crazy. It has so many crazy choices that it makes, like sending an Olympic gymnast to compete in a blood sport for some reason. I love it. It's great. It seems as if the movie is told out of order. And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but it's like they have it where he goes to the city, gets chased by a group of assassins, I guess, or just people who want him dead. They capture a princess. Then he goes to do the blood sport. And I thought it would have been the opposite. Like basically he does the blood sport, he survives, and then they chase him through the town, kidnap the princess. He has to save the princess. So it's told in a very weird way, but I still enjoyed what they tried to do in this movie. Overall, I would put this probably ahead of Samurai Cop because at least this has a plot to it. Samurai Cop is just I don't even know how you would describe Samurai Cop anymore. It's just someone tried to make a movie.
Sure.
But yeah, this movie I enjoyed. I didn't think I would, and I just kept laughing at how they tried to incorporate the gymnastics into it.
Sure.
Like him running down an alleyway, and there just happens to be a high bar.
And he also took the time to chalk his hands before
I was just
jumping
going
on
to
that.
say, luckily he chalked his hands up beforehand, just in case he came across some gymnastics equipment. And obviously, everyone talks about when you talk about this movie, they always bring up the famous pommel horse scene in the village of the Crazies. But I thought it was just fun watching him do flips around for no reason as he was fighting off loads of henchmen.
Sure.
It's a very silly movie, and it winds up being like a Ronald Reagan propaganda film at the end with the Star Wars defense. So yeah,
it is disappointing that our hero is a CIA operative.
Yeah, they bring his father back for a scene. Again, just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and yep, here you go.
It all sticks.
Yeah,
It's true.
It sticks the landing.
Right. 10 out of 10.
exactly.
10 out of 10. Judges?
Even the Russian judge gives it a 10, or the Parmestani judge. Okay, Mark, what about you? Gymkata.
Yeah. Well, first off, Yakmala, everyone.
Yakmala.
This movie, at first I loved the opening with the juxtaposition between the gymnastics equipment for like the first, I think it's like 2 minutes of credits. You're just staring at a high bar as the credits come across the screen.
90 seconds, but pretty close to it. 2 minutes.
And then the cut in and out of the horses and him on the parallel bars. The only thing that confused me was it took me a while to realize it, that they weren't like cutting from that to him in an action scene. But I did love a lot of that opening because the whole unnecessary thing of that guy coming across the gorge and, the guy deciding that, I'm going to shoot him with a bow and arrow from like 4 feet away. When there's probably much easier ways to make sure you get him. But yeah, it was just, as you got and found out the game, you just realized that, like, why would anybody think that spot isn't where they just off everyone? I mean, it's the easiest location in the course. And I loved how they made a big deal of they change the course up all the time and they, don't change it or they change it all the time. And then they end up basically having a lot of the same things you see the father running through in the beginning.
They just changed the order. There's like 5 things. Order. It's like, we'll do it backwards this time.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time with I wish this movie, the hour 30 is pretty good. The whole training montage in the beginning, they could have put an extra 5 minutes or so on it a little bit because it felt like a little quick, especially when the whole romance angle with the princess went from she didn't talk to him or do anything and basically just stared at him out a window to she let him kiss her. And then
it's the power of Gymkata.
It's power of Gymkata, I guess.
Sweet flips, man.
Sweet flips. I did laugh out loud at the unnecessary flips of him doing her and him in a conversation. That was mwah, because it was completely unnecessary, but worked perfect. And then the entire movie is just great in that sense that it's everything I love from those movies that Dan mentioned, and then other movies we've seen of the ilk, where it sort of has an idea, it tries to implement that idea of reminding you of the special feature of this guy, like Samurai Cop, ends up using the samurai sword at some point. He does a lot of gymnastics stuff. The pommel horse scene might be one of my favorite action scenes I've seen this year. It's just ridiculous and made me laugh. And then, just the sheer fact that he made no efforts to not make himself stand out as an American anywhere he was. Like when he was sneaking to get her out of the base, he just had that bright neon tracksuit on, and with his blonde hair, running up and banging on the front door, like completely terrible CIA agent. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I always judge it by how many times I check my phone during these movies, and I think the only time I only checked it maybe once, and that was just because it buzzed with a message. I didn't check the time or start getting bored and go on any social media or anything. So I thoroughly did enjoy my time watching.
Okay. As for me, yeah, this is my first time watching it. I love the fact that the king looks so much like Mel Brooks that it feels like I'm watching a Mel Brooks movie. But otherwise, it's great. I love watching Kurt Thomas just kick the elderly and the feeble so much in the Village of the Damned scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whoever casted the extras in this film, they earn their paycheck threefold.
He also knocks that guy off the bike earlier when he's swinging around the bar. There's a lot of like collateral damage whenever Kurt Thomas involved.
Yeah, in that scene he didn't harness the power of Gymkata. It was a little unruly at that point.
No.
He really doesn't do that until the Village of the Damned scene. But it's a lot of fun, this film. It gets messy at times in
think
like
so?
just a little bit. Just a little bit. Like the whole scene where he infiltrates where the princess is being held is just wild and doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of the blocking. But it's Gymkata. What are we talking about when we're starting to talk about blocking? But this is a fun watch. This is my first time watching it, like I said. And yeah, there's so many. This is my favorite James Bond ripoff that also stars whose lead is a gymnastics star, because there's a movie called Never Too Young to Die starring John Stamos, which has a very similar plot, and he also plays a high school gymnast, and It's also a James Bond ripoff.
So he does Gymkata?
He doesn't. He's like, they have a stunt person in the beginning that just sets the tone that he is a high school gymnast who becomes a CIA operative to infiltrate or investigate the murder of his father. And
wait, it really sounds like they ripped off Gymkata here.
It came out in '86, so it's entirely possible. And it has Gene Simmons in it. Never Too Young to Die.
Wow. I'm going to have to check that one out.
So I have a question, and maybe, Matt, you can answer this. Why would anyone willingly enter the game?
That's a great question. I think the more fundamental question is, they say when they're explaining when the CIA boss guy, is recruiting Kurt Thomas to accept this mission, which he is wildly and utterly unqualified for. He says, no one has entered. Hold on, I got it right here. Anyone who enters Parmistan must play the game. If he wins, he's allowed his life and one request. But then they also say, like, no one has won the game. No outsider has won the game in like 900 years or something like that.
900
years. So that implies that no human being from outside Parmistan has like entered Parmistan in 900 years and lived, which raises 1,000 other questions of like, how do they know anything about this country if no one can go into it, because everyone who goes into it has to play the game and everyone who does dies.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, unless people from Parmistan are going out into the world and explaining, oh yeah, I live in a place where...
Right. Or like somehow the CIA has recruited Parmistanian informants. And I guess they do have Princess Rubali there, the princess who, again, as you noted earlier, quite accurately and inexplicably, she says nothing the first like 20 minutes of the movie. And then later she just starts talking and no one comments on the fact that she wasn't speaking and now is speaking. and no one reacts to either development like it's out of the ordinary at all. And she is supposedly the only person, like she's like, they explain, oh, you have an edge that no one else has had in the game. We have Princess Rubali here to help you. But she doesn't speak to him, which raises yet another question, which is, how is she helping him if she's not talking to him about what to do?
Just pulling knives out on him.
Right. She's threatening his life, I suppose. So I guess she's teaching him to stay on his toes. But yeah, like they say, well, the game has changed every time. How could he possibly prepare for it if it changes every time? What is he learning from this woman who won't speak to him? It's all absurd. The guy who trains him has a falcon on his arm for absolutely no reason. The falcon never does anything with the falcon. There are no falcons in the game. He's just talking to him while he has a falcon on his arm. Then he uses those weird, I don't know what sort of martial arts weapon they are, that never comes up in the game, that's not involved, that's pointless. It's just a guy doing a martial arts demonstration. Oh, I love it. It's just all magic. It's all pure cinema magic.
I wonder if these guys who are training him, they use these tools in their time in the game. Like, oh, when I played, I had a falcon.
They couldn't have played. If they played the game, they were dead. So these guys have literally they have no qualification. It'd be like if they asked me to train this guy and I was like, oh, sure, yeah, okay. Here, yeah, you got to walk up the stairs on, you got to do a handstand up the stairs. What possible reason would he have to do a handstand up a set of stairs?
It never comes into play.
It doesn't come into play either. Nothing they do comes into play.
One of my favorite things about this movie is as Mark alluded to earlier, they keep killing people with they shoot them with a bow and arrow, the contestants of the game.
Right.
Except
the ninjas who also are the out of bounds lines and the referees and the guides and also they're ninjas. But yes, and go ahead. What you were going to say?
So they kill pretty much everyone is either killed with a spear or an arrow to the back.
Right.
Except for our main character, who they decide we're going to try to kill him in the longest way possible now by setting his rope on fire or cutting the bridge off where he's clearly shown that he knows how to climb ropes. So I don't know why the main villain decided to not just end him quickly.
Yeah, that's a fair question. As you noted, they seem pretty good with the bows and arrows. In fact, one of my favorite things about this movie is the arrow effects are very good. So it really looks like they're murdering people with arrows. Getting back to what we were saying about the stabilizer earlier, where it looks like people crash cars and you're like, oh, 4 people just died in that car crash. Like when you watch Gymkata, there's people are getting shot with arrows left and right, and you watch the arrow leave someone's bow and go into someone's body, and I'm sure I'm sure it was faked somehow, but it looks fantastic. And they have there's the amazing, it's an intentional joke, it's an actually funny moment where I don't know who it is, the contact or whatever, where they're in that town, and he's like, oh, it's just a little anti-American sentiment, nothing to worry about. Oh! And he gets shot instantly with an arrow. It is like a Mel Brooks movie in that moment. Again, but it's it's absolutely absurd, but it's also a really good, it looks like that guy just got killed with an arrow, R.I.P. So yeah, there's this fascinating and lovely mix of movie makes absolutely no sense. It has this bizarre dream logic, but on the other hand, it's not entirely incompetently made. The director of this movie is Robert Klaus. He had a long and Gymkata notwithstanding, fairly successful career. This is the guy who directed Enter the Dragon, and this movie is just a shameless, you mentioned James Bond, and it certainly is that too, but it's also just a shameless Enter the Dragon ripoff as well. 100 different ways, except the part where Enter the Dragon is very exciting and thrilling and meditative, and Gymkata is just, shit insane. Gymkata. Right, it's Gymkata. But, that guy, I'm not going to stand here and tell you Robert Klaus was, the peer of Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese, but he knew how to use a camera. he clearly knew how to shoot people with arrows. I don't know what was going on there, but like he is not. This is not Tommy Wiseau who made this movie. Like,
Yeah.
it has, like the action scenes are clear. You really can see what Kurt Thomas is doing. You can tell that he is really doing these pointless flips and kicking people and spinning and like it has this base level of competence that makes the insanity of the story, the dialogue, characters, it kind of enhances it in a way that I find very charming and lovable. Where it doesn't feel you feel like you're watching a movie from another universe, not necessarily a bad movie. Like in this universe where this movie was made, where presumably Parmistan is a real country, this movie makes sense. Like, but it just doesn't make sense in our universe. In our universe, you don't train gymnasts to be CIA karate fighters just because their parents were. Like, that's not a hereditary position, generally speaking.
He's a nepo baby. I get it.
He's a nepo baby. Yes, exactly. He's the ultimate gymnastic nepo baby. Exactly.
I think my favorite use of bow and arrow in this movie is when they're showing them when they're following along to watch other people play the game, and that guy's going across the gorge, and the one ninja climbs across and then tries to find a way to hook himself onto the rope in the middle of the gorge to be able to shoot the bow and arrow.
Yes.
Sure.
Instead of just kicking the guy off.
Right. Kind of again, that's sort of like an impressive physical feat.
Yeah.
Like where you're sitting there going, wow, that's kind of cool. I also enjoy where, when they have that sort of, it's like the, what would you call it? Like the rehearsal for, for the big game. This is like the pre-game, I guess. Where Jonathan, Kurt Thomas, and the other potential contestants are watching a group of prisoners who I get, this is like, now it's like the Running Man. It's like if they survive, they get their freedom or whatever. And they're watching, and he shoots one guy or he hits one guy, and then they're like, yes, kill him. And everyone watching assumes that they're going to kill the contestant, but no, they like shoot an arrow at the ninja and they're like, he violated the rules of the game. He was in the next stage of the game. He should have waited until later and then killed him. And then of course later when they're doing the game again, it's like it's like no rules, and they're making up rules left and right, and it's all absolute nonsense. And I just love the idea of like, oh, he broke the rules, we'll kill him now. So if you do we can kill you at any time, except when we can't kill you. We have to kill you later. But then later we'll kill you also.
There's a scene where Kurt Thomas, he gets to the top after they set the rope on fire. He gets to the top, and one of the out of bounds ninjas is there. And Kurt Thomas tells him he broke the rules, kill him. And
he's really upset. Yes, he's totally indignant about it. Yes.
Yeah, he just kind of shrugs his shoulders.
He just looks at him. He just stares him. Yeah, exactly.
Was that his dad by any chance?
Oh, now we're adding some headcanon here. I love it. Yes.
I think
from now on it is. From now on,
because there was like a lingering shot of that dude's eyes, specifically very Caucasian looking eyes.
Yeah, it was definitely from now on. It definitely is in my mind.
He's definitely one of the out of bounds ninjas. I don't know if it's this one or the one right before he goes to the town.
I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to like proceed in an orderly fashion through the story, but you mentioned the dad, and the dad has the single best line in any movie ever, and just in the terms of the sheer insanity, you'll never find a line better than this, which is, like, we haven't talked much about the Village of the Crazies, which to me is like, I would watch a whole movie about the Village of the Crazies. I could talk about the Village of the Crazies for 7 hours. But anyway, his father, who is presumed dead because he was in the game, and everyone who enters the game dies. We already established that. Somehow the dad has survived for the weeks and the months since his playing the game. They don't explain why. They don't explain how. But he survived somehow, and he rescues the son now. The first thing he says, the son says, like, Dad, you're alive. The father's response is, I knew you'd get here, Jonathan. Which is really, when you break that sentence down, it's like, I knew you, my son, who is a gymnast, would be recruited by the CIA to chase after me, to enter this blood sport game, to enter not die at any of the points previously, to go in the village of the Crazies where I could rescue you. I knew you would get here, Jonathan. It's just how anyone could tell me they don't love this. I refuse to believe it. It's pure poetry.
It's the greatest coincidence in movie history.
I knew you would be here, Jonathan. I knew it. And then he immediately gets shot with an arrow, too.
Oh.
Another amazing surprise arrow shot. But then he somehow survives. The dad is like a Highlander or something. He can't be killed. It's just tremendous.
I love the fact that the name, the game, it was probably a placeholder in the beginning, and it got to a point too late that they were like, I guess we'll just call it the game.
Well, Gymkata is based on a novel called The Terrible Game, which I have not read, but I do own. I paid a hilarious amount of money for on eBay because, believe it or not, the book that Gymkata is inspired by is not currently in print and not easily accessible. So you have to buy an old, used, beat-up paperback on eBay. But I've never read it because I don't want to damage this priceless artifact. But it is called The Terrible Game, so I assume that is where that's where the name comes from. And the plot does not involve gymnastics, but the plot is essentially, if you minus out gymnastics from this, it's like a guy go to this, Eastern European country that's very backwards and medieval or whatever, and they have this terrible game and he has to enter it. So it is inexplicably based on something. One of these days I will get around to reading it. But I for some reason I just haven't taken the time in my busy schedule of, work, writing, watching Gymkata, being a parent to actually read the book. But someday.
I like how the author needed to title it the most terrible game because the most dangerous game was taken already.
Right.
So it's because the beginning of the movie is very reminiscent of the most dangerous game, right? They're literally hunting this man on their land. So it's like, I'm settling down watching this. I'm like, okay, well, this is just going to be the most dangerous game with gymnastics in it, and it's not far off.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Yeah.
Right.
I wish we got to see.
If you built a whole country around the most dangerous game, if you made it your economy, your popular culture, your sports, then you would have and you encouraged people to do gymnastics while they did it. Yes, that's basically Gymkata.
Yeah.
And Parmistan is a great name for a country.
Right.
Yeah. I would like to see us get a chance to watch the game without the interference, right? Because the whole coup just ruins the actual game. We never get to see it take place without Zamir's men just killing people.
Right,
left and right.
Right.
I want to see a pure version of the game.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna flip it on its head and say I would like to see the insanity of the game brought to its logical conclusion on American Ninja Warrior, and it's that show's fine, but where are the ninjas with bows and arrows? Let's ratchet it up. I think Gymkata proves that that's the piece of the puzzle that's missing.
Yeah.
Because the game is just so. I mean, I would watch the game if it was on ESPN 8 or something. It's very compelling. It changes every time. Very dramatic. There's no apparent rules. I don't even know how you win the game. That's one other thing that they just don't say. It's assumed I guess you just survive. But how do you? It's called the game, but how do you win?
Yeah, you
make it back. Right. You just make it back to you kill the bad guy and make it back. It's never really clear. Is there a finish line? Is there an eliminator course like American Gladiators that we just never get to see? Do you have to be elected mayor of the village of the Crazies? It's not made clear what is the end game of the game.
That's true.
And it's something I've thought a lot about and written some fan fiction about that I don't show people. But I would love to know. You're right. What does it look like to to see the game in its pure form and what would it take to actually win in a situation where Zamir isn't causing chaos.
I'd also like to know how much the CIA tried to have a conversation with the king, because despite the fact that he's obviously the purveyor of obvious violations of the Geneva Convention by having this game, he seems relatively reasonable. And, maybe he could have just had a conversation with them and they could have gave him a whole bunch of money to put some sort of satellite system in Parmistan. I think it would have been fine.
He's very outgoing, the king.
Right.
He likes joking around with everybody.
Like, it's Mel Brooks.
Right.
Golden opportunity to have "It's good to be the king" line.
It's good to be the king.
with the most remarkable comb over I think that's ever been captured. It starts like below his ear, I want to say. Like it somehow it defies physics. This man's comb over. I mean, it is really quite impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's yet another thing that I've pondered for far too many years. Is like, so if you win the game, like the reason that Kurt Thomas is in Parmistan is to win the game, because if you win the game, you get a wish, a request. Like, this is a country where no one ever enters, and so it's just like, well, how would they, like, what would the requests be? Like, how would they honor them? Like, what if you said, well, I want $10 million? Like, how would they attain? What would they do?
Right.
Yeah.
I want to be married to, I don't know who the most beautiful woman of 1985 would be considered, but like, what would they do? I'm always fascinated that it's like the plot depends on, you got to go win this game, because if you win, you can request a Star Wars satellite system be built here. And I guess they did acquiesce based on the title card at the end of the movie. They built it, so. And that's what, as we all know, as you mentioned, that's what finally ended the Cold War, was that act. So yeah, it just it's a very, very fascinating country, is what I'm trying to say. And I would love to visit it, really.
So that leads me to this question then. What would you guys wish for if you won the game?
Ooh, I'm assuming 1,000 wishes is out of the question.
I don't know, right? Can they...
It's hard to know. In Parmistan, really anything goes. Like
the king isn't a genie, though, as far as we know, right?
He dresses like one.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I would love to see like what they would do if you just asked for a large lump sum of cash. Like, where would they get that money? Would they get it? Would they say no? Ask us again. We can't make that happen. What happens if you ask for a request or a wish that they are incapable of granting? What if you requested that they stop murdering every single person that enters the country? Like, what would happen then?
So that's like shutting down the game.
Right. Would they say, okay, you got us?
Right. Yeah. Why would that not be the number one requested thing? Like, stop doing this.
That's the fear. That's why no outsider has won in 900 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. So they rigged the game. So
I was going to say, I think the game is usually rigged. Like, Zamir's men make it a point that nobody is crossing that line.
I mean, it seems pretty rigged.
Yeah.
Nobody's won in 900 years, they say, or whatever. So
yeah.
If it's not rigged, it doesn't need to, because it's impossible.
Right.
Yeah. You just have the ninjas on the other side of that gorge, and you just pepper people with arrows. It's impossible to survive.
I mean, it's a case could be made that it cannot be won because there's no obvious goal. Like that, how can you win the game if there's no way to win? Like,
right?
There's no parameters set.
Right. They don't explain. They show the course. They show, and they, you've got to climb up this rope and you've got to cross this gorge. And not be hit by an arrow and replaced by a very obvious dummy that we then threw down into the gorge.
Oh, that's my favorite deaths in this. Just the matter of factness of those dummies hitting those rocks at the bottom. It's just
great dummy.
So final.
Yeah, but they never say, "Here's how to win." So of course no one won. There's no way to win.
Right.
But they're kind enough to put like the ninjas on the path to show you the way.
Yeah.
So they at least give you the illusion that there is a way there is an endpoint, I guess, in this game.
Yeah.
But they don't specify where.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking especially in the Village of the Damned, where it's just like, all right, so you're in the Village of Damned.
The Village of the Crazies. Show a little respect for this municipality of Crazies.
Oh man, I have a lot of Village of the Damned in my notes later, so I'm gonna have to remember that. But it's like, yeah, all right. So I go to the Village of the Crazies, and then
thank you.
Then what?
Yeah,
am I just supposed to go from one end to the other?
Yeah. Unclear. You wait for Jonathan Cabot's dad to show up and say, "I knew you'd get here."
He says it to everybody.
He hopes that it's his son.
Yeah. He's just like an animatronic at a Disney ride. He just says the same thing over and over again.
My favorite citizen of the Village of the Crazy is the backwards face man.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure everyone has their own favorite villager, but he was my favorite because I love the idea of that man standing in the corner backwards all day in hopes that someone who's playing the game makes it that far.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
He has a face on the back of his head.
Yep.
Which, for the gag to work, means he literally has to stand with his actual face up against a wall all day, every day.
Yes.
That's it.
You got to admit, you got to admit, it's pretty crazy. You're going to be in the Village of the Crazies. You might as well. It lives up to the billing.
Yeah. That's a commitment to the bit that I can respect.
Yeah. Absolutely. You think they give the Village of the Crazies a heads up? Like, oh, we're doing the game today. Just be aware. Get into position, I guess.
It's my reading of the vibes in the Village of the Crazies is that they don't even know that a game exists. It does not seem like they're sort of like willing or active participants in the game. They're just crazy.
So when people come in and just start beating the shit out of them, they just think this guy's here to beat us up for no reason.
I feel anyone who comes into the Village of the Crazies, if they're not crazy. Again, this is another area where the logic of the movie is absolute like galaxy brain weirdness, where it's like it's a village of the crazy. So like, is there a mayor? Is there is there a general store? Is it run by a crazy person?
Yeah.
You know, like how do they eat?
Yeah, do people like send supplies to them and they just never come back?
Right. So many questions. Right. And like, why is the guy have a face on the back of his head? Like, is this a bit? You know, and then there's the guy where like he's wearing a robe and he's like beckoning him, come this way. And then he turns around and his ass is hanging out.
He's like an escaped hospital patient.
Right. Very crazy. Very crazy. And then there's a guy who like chops his own hand off. Just like such a commitment to the bit. It's like, how does he like, is this the only, like, what is he going to do next time? Like, he's only got one hand now. Is he going to cut off a leg next time? Is he going to cut off the other hand? Like, it's like, I mean, it's like a Monty Python movie, but it's done with a straight face. It's beautiful. I love the Village of the Crazies so much. I wish there was 10 movies about the Village of the Crazies.
Yeah, there needed to be a sequel or a prequel to how the Village of the Crazies started.
Right. Songbird of the Ballad of Songbirds and Crazies.
Sign me up.
So, Gymkata from 1985 is directed by Robert Klaus, who directed Enter the Dragon, Game of Death, and China O'Brien 1 and 2, starring our favorite Cynthia Rothrock. Stars Kurt Thomas, Techi Agbayani, Richard Norton, Conan Lee, Bob Schott, and Buck Kartalian. IMDb score of 4.3, Rotten Tomatoes score of 17%. Budget, according to Google, it was $4 million. Box office, $5.7 million. All right, you guys want to get into the plot?
Let's do it.
Sure.
All right. Dan, what you got for us?
Real quick, make it nice and short for you guys. Please go check out these two podcasts that we're friends of. The first is The Top 10 with Tia. We've had Tia on several times. She is great. So please go over to geekvibesnation.com, search The Top 10 with Tia, give it a listen. And second podcast is with our very own Mark Myers called the Game Vault Podcast. It's a podcast that goes about video game news, upcoming games that you should be paying attention to or playing. So please go check them out. They are on any podcatcher of your choice. Go check them out and follow them on all their socials at Game Vault Pod.
Okay, great. And we are going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Steve.
And this is Adam.
And we're part of the Hop Nation USA podcast.
Pittsburgh's #3 craft beer podcast.
Join us every Friday for new beer reviews.
We'll talk about the news, history, and homebrewing.
Plus, we'll sit down with the best brewers and industry personalities that'll have us.
So whether you're a casual drinker, a hazy boy hophead,
or even if you're a whale hunting cellar hoarder,
just search Hop Nation USA on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher and join the nation.
Oh, hi, didn't see you there. It's me, George, from the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest at least. We've talked about groundbreaking classics like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Alien, but we've also got a lot of great ones coming up, including some very fun guests like Len Kabaczynski of Swamp Zombies and Red Letter Media fame, Caroline Williams, the star of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Chase Williamson from John Dies at the End. So make sure you're subscribed to the best little horror house in Philly, and I'll see you boils and ghouls over there.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into the plot for Gymkata. We open on a 90-second shot of a horizontal bar before we see Kurt Thomas start doing some spins until we abruptly cut to the greenest pants I've ever seen run away from a group of ninjas on horseback, as well as a guy that looks like Roy Scheider and all that jazz.
That's good. That's a good reference.
Zamir. I call him a couple of different things here. They chase him until he tries to make it across a chasm by pulling himself across by a rope, but he's shot by an arrow via the lone Gibb brother. We then cut back to Olympic gymnast Kurt Thomas finishing his routine under extremely stylized lighting, and everyone cheers as he finishes.
So where do we rank his mullet?
It is a good mullet.
Yeah.
Solid mullet.
Yeah.
I always love in the beginning that little touch where, like, you know, he gives this incredible slow motion performance that's incredibly underwhelming in slow motion. Like, the whole point of like gymnastics is like the speed and the power, and like they just show him like flipping around in incredible slow motion where it makes it just seem very boring. And then you know, like he's coming off the I don't know what's the gymnastics floor, the gym, whatever, and everyone's cheering, and like one girl is like, "Oh, I love you, Kurt Thomas," and she's like trying to follow him, and like the guy is like, no, please, no autographs, please. Like he like stops her, and she gives this like very sad look. I've always wondered, like, why put that in there? What was that? What was the point of that? What a strange, odd, just like a very odd vestigial detail that I don't know. I still to this day I've thought about it so many times trying to figure out what include that. But anyway,
I think it's to show that Kurt Thomas is like a stud, and like women swoon for Kurt Thomas.
Right. Well, that becomes very obvious the moment you see him on camera.
Sure.
Certainly when he's climbing the stairs, you know, like on his hands, and his crotch is being thrust into the camera. We he's in love, you know, with Princess Rubali. But you're right. If you needed further evidence, I suppose it does show that.
We came dangerously close to seeing some Kurt Thomas taint.
It's pretty out there for all to see in that sequence.
He then gets very specific but very different looks from a middle-aged man and a young woman. And we then cut to the middle-aged man and Kurt Thomas talking at a house in the mountains. The man is some sort of government official, and he wants to train John, Kurt Thomas, in order to use him in some secret government operation to secure a place in the country of Parmistan for the government to set up a missile defense satellite system. Very Cold War era. Parmistan has what they call the game, a mysterious physical contest that hasn't been won by an outsider in 900 years. If someone were to win, they'd be given a single request.
Is this like a day of my daughter's wedding situation?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it is literally.
But also, how do they even know no one's won in 900 years? If no outsiders have gotten in 900 years, how do they know anyone hasn't won in 900 years? How do they know the detailed history of Parmistan?
The great PR machine of Parmistan, obviously.
Right. They must have an incredible. Can you imagine working for the Parmistan Tourism Board? You get people to come. They're going to kill them as soon as they walk in. It's just, anyway.
Yeah, there's no way they could leave a 1-star review.
Right. I mean, that's true, I guess.
Come see our luscious forests, our amazing
Climb
bazaar.
our beautiful ropes.
Don't forget the swamp, guys. Miles and miles of swamp.
Participate in our deadly blood sport.
Feel better about your mental health by visiting the village of the Crazies.
The man then introduces John to Princess Rubali from Parmistan, who will help them in this mission. How she helps, I have no idea. Then we have a training montage as John is worked by various trainers, including some weapon work, some monkey bars, and walking up the stairs on his hands.
Which, as we established, none of these things, like, you know, it's like the anti-Chekhov's gun. It's like nothing that is introduced here will factor in later in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You're right, because he uses those like mini sights, or he's one of the guys trains with them. He never uses that, but what Kurt Thomas does use is an AK-47. And he doesn't train with that at all.
That's true.
Yeah, especially like this movie is full of the Chekhov's guns, because is the switchblade thing that she gets from Q ever used again?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Right, the thing that shoots across the room
right.
and embeds, and they make specific mention to it, like a James Bond movie, going through all the weapons. And if I'm not mistaken, it never comes back again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, he might use it in the sequence in the city. I don't even know what country they're supposed to be in before they go to Parmistan, but think so. I'm trying to think. You would think if I've seen this movie 600 times, I would know, but
I guess that means
certainly not used in like a very memorable fashion. Let's put it that way. No, the things they should be training him. I mean, I guess training him to, like, you know, use those like rope. It's like a monkey bars, but rope. Like, I guess that's sort of, you know, useful because there is a lot of climbing and stuff. But like, you should be teaching him to like dodge arrows and you know, like avoid pitchforks and, you know, not be deceived by people with faces on the back of their heads. Like, those are the skills you need for the game. Like, not any of the stuff they teach him, or like having a falcon. I just love the falcon.
The falcon is so great.
And honestly, Kurt Thomas should be able to handle the upper body work.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got that down.
Yeah, he didn't really need to practice that. Presumably he had that part down pretty good.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen a scene during the training montage where Princess Rubali has a backwards face. Like, never trust anybody. And it's her, like, it's not even her face. It's just some random person's face.
That'd have been good. The princess is one nut that he's having trouble cracking, but then he has a conversation with himself doing flips. She lets him make out with her, and then maybe more later on. But then we transition right to Karabal, a city in Parmistan, and they meet with a queue of sorts that welcomes them and shows off a few weapons for John. Then tells him,
I like that he did the joke that you do with your girlfriends in the movies, where he sort of has like, that's the stork, or whatever the nickname for the guy they're meeting is.
Oh, yeah.
Pointing up, as they're walking up, as he's walking up to the pier.
Q then tells them that they'll move out in the morning to where the game is, but for that night, he can spend the night in the city. While they work through the town bazaar, John, the princess, and their two escorts are attacked. One of the escorts is speared while the attackers run off with the princess, leaving John to fight off his assailants using his sweet Gymkata moves. Then goes to find this Q character at the safe house to tell him what happened, and Q tells him that the princess was taken by some sort of terrorist group, and it's too dangerous for John to try and do anything to get her back. John says nuts to that, and he goes to try and find her for the next morning. Immediately gets chased by some more attackers that chase him into an alley, which just so happens to have a horizontal bar overhead. So John uses it to kick his would-be assailants unconscious, and also a biker by accident.
There's no reason to have that.
Makes me laugh.
Right? It's funny, but in the grand scheme of things, of the movie, do you really need to have him kick an innocent bystander off his bike?
Well, as we established, he does hurt innocent people a lot. So it's a nice runner for the movie that this guy is.
And
he's not really that competent, if we're really being honest.
Yeah. And how confident are we that just wasn't a random townsperson and not even part of the movie set?
Well, that's why they spend so much time. Like, are you okay?
Then he just sort of strolls into the terrorist mansion and fights a guy with one eye, then shoots and kills the terrorist group leader, and he and the princess make a break for it.
Now, real quick, tell me, does that not feel as if it should have been the climax of this movie?
it definitely feels like a weird tangent that this movie goes on.
Yeah, rescuing a princess is usually the final thing you do in almost any sort of media, video games, movies, TV.
Well, he does technically do that again by winning the game.
I guess.
Now, I guess his one request is to technically do the Star Wars program, but wouldn't it have been something if he just decided, no, my one request is I want to marry your daughter?
Yeah.
Screw the Star Wars satellite.
That would have been good. That would have been the resolve in like a movie that that takes place in the Cold War but is made after the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
So it's like he'll rebel against this CIA operation.
Yeah. You would think the CIA would double cross him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Usually that's something that happens, but this isn't a Mission Impossible movie, so
right.
Another detail that I really love in this section is that the Q guy, he works in a big like saltery.
That's right.
It's like there's just piles of salt, or who knows? Maybe it's cocaine. I don't know. It's just giant piles of white stuff all over in the background for no reason whatsoever. There's no reason to have the scenes taking place there. And then I also love, like, after the sequence you're describing, where he rescues the princess, comes back, and the Q character is like standing there. He literally, like, Kurt Thomas's reaction is like, "Nothing is packed. What happened? Come on! What the heck?" He's like so like petulant and angry. It's just his line deliveries. He doesn't have a ton of dialogue in this movie, and most of it is fine. But for some reason, the way he delivers the lines in that scene has always made me laugh. Just like he's like, "Nothing is packed. What the hell?"
A spot on impression.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the salt is like Parmesan's main export or something. They just have mountains of salt. Like that's
very strange. And I feel like, I don't know, every time I watch it, it feels like when they go back, the scene at the end where nothing is packed, it feels like all the salt is gone. Or maybe they shot it in a different way where you can't see all the salt. And it's like, I always wait for when he's saying like, what, nothing is done. I always wait for him to be like, what? Look, all the salt is gone. What do you think I've been doing? I was getting rid of the salt. Like, every time I watch this movie, I always wait for that explanation, and it never comes, unfortunately.
You know how hard it is to move all this salt?
Yeah, there's 6,000 tons of salt in here, and I got rid of all of it while you were kicking bystanders on bicycles, so cut me some slack.
I want to see you try to do this.
They're pursued by a bunch of guys in trench coats and machine guns. Chase ensues. Machine guns are fired. A car flips, but they manage to get away and back to Q. But it turns out Q was in on it the whole time and is getting ready to shoot John. But the government official comes out of nowhere to machine gun Q and a couple of the assailants to death, which is wildly more violent than I was expecting for this movie. And they head out in the morning, and John and the princess have to navigate what looks to be Class 4 rapids, though we didn't see John have to train in whitewater rafting in the beginning, so that was some training that he probably could have used. They continue down the river, and they're tailed by ninjas on horseback. As they come to shore, they're met with a full team of ninjas that put John's Gymkata skills to the test. John has not completely mastered Gymkata quite yet, as he is knocked out by one of the ninjas.
I like how you're describing Gymkata like it's a mystic force.
It is.
Yeah.
He has not yet mastered the ancient art of Gymkata.
I feel like that is the arc of this film, is that he has to learn how to use Gymkata.
I don't know. Maybe? It's kind of sloppy. So I don't know what the main point of the movie is.
I'm gonna go with that. Is that this whole game is actually just a setup, a ruse for John to learn how to master Gymkata. Nobody actually dies in this.
Oh,
It's like a Shutter Island / Adam Sandler's anger management, where it's just all just a play for our main character.
What does the CIA gain from that, though?
He learns to trust himself. I don't know.
Oh, the CIA cares about that? Well, I guess he could go win the Olympics.
Right, yeah. They really need him to to win gold.
All right,
in-
teaching him mental toughness.
Yes. So now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, perfect sense.
This movie is like just a propaganda piece for the American Olympic team.
US
Like remember Spiker, the volleyball movie that we watched,
Yeah.
where it was just propaganda for people to join the U.S. volleyball team.
Do you think the U.S. government was sending Gymkata to the other countries and saying, "Don't even bother. This is what our gymnasts can do."
Yeah, like
Not
just
only
think of
can
it.
they compete, but they could also beat up terrorists.
Look, you train all your U.S. gymnastic Olympians in Gymkata. Then, oh my God, there's an Olympics in, I don't know, Russia or the Soviet Union at that point.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden you've got like a team of 12 operatives inside enemy lines.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, makes
No one's
sense.
going to suspect the uneven bar guy, or what do they do when they twirl the ribbons, the floor? Isn't that what it's called?
The floor exercise.
No one's going to suspect that person.
Yeah. Dominique Mucciano. Remember her? Yeah, she was an operative. But unfortunately, that Olympics was in
It's all
Atlanta,
classified, though. It's all classified. You should not be talking about this.
And that Olympics was in Atlanta, Georgia, so it really didn't make much sense for that year. But, you got to keep up the program.
If one of us goes missing after this airs, you'll know why.
Yeah. He wakes in a room as he's being attended to by a toothless woman, and he immediately asks where the princess is, and then is greeted by Terrence Stamp as General Zod. And he tells him the game begins tomorrow, and he tells John that the princess is with her father. Later, John is brought in with the other competitors to the king that looks an awful lot like Mel Brooks, as he starts to tell them what lays ahead of them in the game. It starts as a 3-mile run in the swamp, then goes to some rope climbing, and also has a stopover at some place called the Village of the Crazies, ending in a 5-mile run through the swamp. Then the king puts on a silly hat so he can dress as people. The game starts with the king releasing 3 prisoners that can compete in the game for their freedom. Then the guards chase them on horseback as the competitors follow. I don't know why the prisoners have to have such a harder time at the game, because they're not like trained athletes. They were never going to get past the rope part of the game. Just,
Right.
Was this just because it was going to be like an exhibition for the people who are really going to play the game?
Yeah, absolutely. But it just seems unfair that they also have to deal with ninjas that are like right on their asses about to kill them.
Yeah,
Also,
right,
need to emphasize how much they say Yakmala, which they say constantly.
So what is that a greeting?
It seems to be.
Okay, so maybe that's how they say hello or good luck, maybe.
I mean, everyone speaks perfect English, but they also say the word Yakmala.
Right.
The entire Parmestanian language consists of one word.
Yeah.
It's John in
It's John.
Parmistan.
It's just, or salute or whatever.
Salud.
Yeah.
So they go station to station as they watch these prisoners attempt to win a rigged game, as they each die by the hand of the guards at each of the stations, last one making it all the way to the rope course before he is shot by an arrow. Competitors all go...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Don't you think you would want to pretend that this game is doable? So like maybe you have the prisoners make it through the game. Like, you see, yeah, you guys can win it. Give them that false sense of security.
I don't know what the king's motivation is, to be honest.
Is it just to kill as many people as possible?
It seems like it.
He seems to love the game. He just is a big fan. He's like the game's biggest fan, and he's just constantly like getting all hyped for when people go off to get killed in the game.
But then he doesn't penalize what's the guy's name? The main villain.
Zamir?
Yeah, he doesn't penalize him. So is it kind of like a Bud Selig thing where people are cheating? Like, the game is so popular, I have to sweep it under the rug.
Sure.
I mean, the other thing to ask is, like, he's so into the game, but not like they're televising the game.
Right.
How is he? He's not following, like, on horseback. How does he even know what happens? I mean, like, they come back and tell him, "Oh, it was great, King. You missed it. Oh, the ninja, he shot him with an arrow. It was terrific. You should have been there, King. It was fantastic." But how is he? He's so obsessed with this thing, but like he says Yakmala, he sends them off, and then he just stays there.
It's a good point. Yeah, he doesn't know what's going on. For all he knows, these people could make it out.
Right.
And he'd have no clue.
Maybe he just takes pleasure in designing the game that people don't win. It's just that's satisfaction enough.
Maybe,
It's like,
yeah.
I built this, and once again, no one's won. But I mean,
It's
obviously,
the ownership of it.
yeah. The competitors all go back to town, and there's a celebration for the start of the games at the palace. There's food, drinks, music. King addresses the crowd, and John asks the king what happened to his dad, who participated in the games before. King says he was a good competitor, but he did not make it. John then learns that the village of the Crazies is where the country sends the criminally insane. And the princess's marriage is announced to Joe Gideon, which will happen tomorrow after the games. That's just another name that I gave Zamir. The name of Roy Scheider and all that jazz. Another competitor shows up at the celebration, and John recognizes him as another guy named Thorg. I didn't really understand Thorg's role in this whole movie.
Just totally normal name, Thorg.
But Kurt Thomas knows him.
And this is another amazing, weird detail: is that like Thorg is a guy, like he knows him. How does he know? Is he like an Olympic gymnast or an Olympic athlete of some other discipline? How does he know? He's like, I'm Thorg. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And Thorg gives him a look like, leave me alone, you mullet-headed dweeb.
Right. He's definitely not shaped like a gymnast, though.
Right.
No, he's shaped like a power lifter.
Right, yeah. Power lifter, like a shot put, or something like that.
Yeah, so maybe he's a master, like lifter or something. And but then why is he there? Like, what did he come to compete? Like, what possible reason would he have to play the game?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Seems like just bloodlust based on his actions. Just like, I get to kill some fuckers.
Look, my name is Thorg, and I've had enough.
And that's the other thing. I didn't realize that was a part of the game where competitors could kill each other.
I don't think it's supposed to, but we never see the pure. We never see the pure form of the game, so who knows? There are no rules.
You're a real purist for the game.
Yeah.
The purity of the game.
Matt, I'll tell you, ever since we've known Anthony, that's all he's talked about. Keeping the purity of the game alive and well for future generations.
I admire that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not like it used to be, that's for sure. Zamir, aka Charles Danson, Last Action Hero, then decides he needs to show off how much of an alpha dude he is in front of John, so he can try to get him to stop looking at the princess. And then the next night, John takes that toothless lady hostage, so you get to the princess and help her escape? I don't know, because she's just in the castle the next day. Before she runs for it, though, she tells him that Zamir, her soon-to-be husband, is planning a coup against her father. Would be great information to give her father. Then 2 guards show up, but they're no match for Gymkata, as John knocks them down and runs. Finally, the games start the next morning with some fanfare, and the contestants are off, but John immediately is knocked to the ground and kicked in the face by Thorg. Right after the game starts, Zamir starts his coup, putting the king and princess behind armed guards, and then sending out his men to round up and kill John and the other contestants. The contestants of the course is Zamir and his men try to pick off the contestants one by one, shooting one contestant with arrows as he tries to climb the ropes and spearing another in the back. Zamir tries to set the rope on fire as John tries to climb it, but he makes it to safety before the rope is fully engulfed. And one of the other contestants gets scimitared while trying to cross the chasm on the rope. And then Zamir tries to cut the rope when John is going across, but he manages to get across just in time and uses his Gymkata skills to beat up a guard trying to scimitar him.
Yeah, I was almost hoping in this scene that he would do some parallel bar tricks across the 4 ropes to avoid like arrows and stuff. But
there isn't I wish there were more implementation of other apparatus from gymnastics.
Could be like some rings somewhere.
The
vault would have been good.
Vault, yes. There really is a lot of material that they could have mined in the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We needed to see him do an Iron Cross.
I don't know which scimitar it is. One of those scimitars I own was a wedding gift that my former podcast co-host Allison Wilmore gave me for my wedding. It's a authentic Gymkata scimitar. It is incredibly heavy. It is definitely a deadly weapon. It is not sharp, but it is like made out of like a piece of steel that they like cut to look like a scimitar. You could easily murder someone if you bludgeon them with this thing in the head. Yes. So that was a wonderful present. My wife really appreciated it. And yes, I still have it. I was just looking at it a few days ago.
So, Ant, I guess we have to get you a gift now.
Why?
Because as friends of the podcast, we have to hook you up.
I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 scimitars in that scene, so there may be one more out there. I could
That's
look
so
and see
cool.
what prop house this supposedly came from if you're interested.
I'm not the sword guy of the podcast. Dan is. So.
Yeah.
I would gladly take a scimitar.
Meanwhile, Thorg kills one of the other contestants with his bare hands. Then he tries to do the same to John, but he accidentally gets hit by an arrow in the process, and John gets away. And then John makes it to the village of the Crazies, which lives up to the name. It's foggy and seems like a ghost town, if not for the occasional mentally unstable person that tries to kill John. So if you ever wanted to see an Olympic gymnast beat up the handicapped and elderly, do I have a scene for you? I saw somebody say on Letterboxd that this scene turns this movie into Bloodborne for like 20 minutes.
That's true. Yeah.
The video game Bloodborne, yeah.
Interesting. I guess because I haven't played it too much, but I guess you go through a lot of villages.
Yeah.
And just the way that people are acting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
John's Gymkata skills are put to the test as he makes his way through the town, more or less aimlessly as he tries to fend off villagers, game for a fight, as well as Thorg, who's still running around with an arrow in his chest. But Thorg winds up getting a few pitchforks in the chest in a pigsty because he doesn't know Gymkata.
Sorry, Thorg.
If only he trained in Gymkata.
Rip.
Yeah, R.I.P. Thorg.
Luckily, John does know Gymkata, and this town happens to have a pommel horse in the middle of the town square, so John uses it to enhance his Gymkata and just kicks townsperson after townsperson in the face. But then he eventually gets bored with that at some point and then makes a run for it.
It goes on a very long time. It really, every time, I know we were saying, yes, they absolutely should have had more gymnastics related stunts like with the other events that they didn't use. I totally agree with that. But the use of the pommel horse, it just goes on and on. They recycle shots like where like he has this one like kick where he kicks a guy to his left and then he turns and kicks this guy to the right and his leg like gets draped over the pommel horse. They use that same shot at least 3 times. Like just over and over, and because everyone is dressed the same, they easily, I don't even know, like they easily might have had like some of those shots. There may be other shots that are just repeated. It just goes on, and they all very dutifully, like they don't all like rush him at once, which probably would have made it much more difficult to kick them one at a time in the face. But yeah, it's the greatest scene in the history of cinema. I think it's basically what I'm trying to. I'm sort of, that was a long-winded way of saying that.
I think it would have added to the idea of it being a Mel Brooks type of movie if there are other pieces of gym equipment in the same area. Like he goes from the pommel horse to the uneven bar, which is right next to it. So I could definitely see that in like a Zucker.
Yeah, that would be the Zucker brothers gag. Yeah, for sure. It would be, he would get off the pommel horse and there would be like a vault right there or something.
Yeah, he runs, vaults off and like just drop kicks 10 people.
He runs and gets quartered in an alleyway, so he starts scaling the wall like he's some sort of escaped murderer in a Pennsylvania prison. But as he does, a Parmestanian guard cuts him off from the rooftops. Then the guard helps him up to escape, and it's revealed that it's actually Jonathan's dad. Dad says that he was hurt in the fall, but the Parmestan warriors spared his life for no reason. We don't know why.
I knew you'd get here.
And now all I got is this useless arm.
Meanwhile, back at the castle, the princess convinces her father that Zamir is not a good person, and they use their own brand of Gymkata to break out of capture, and with the help of the townspeople beat back the coup. Back in the game, John's dad tries to help him escape, but is shot in the back by Zamir with an arrow. Dad tells him to go and finish the game, so John runs off and takes a horse and races off with Zamir and his men in pursuit, which I'm pretty sure jumping on a horse violates the rules of the game, but I'm a purist, what do I know? John jumps a gorge with a horse, and only Zamir follows, leaving it mano a mano. But Zamir didn't count on John's Gymkata skills to be at max level at this point. So after a fight sequence, John bests Zamir using only Gymkata. As the villagers squash the coup, John and his dad come across the finish line on horseback. His dad maybe is still alive. No one seems too concerned with the state of his dad at the scene.
Yeah, the princess runs up and jumps on his horse, not his dad's.
Yeah. His dad is just there sulking in
Good work, son. Any moment you want to get me some medical attention, that would be nice.
You have to wish for that. Though. That's the
I
problem.
also knew this was going to happen.
Dad, I wish I could heal you, but I have to get the Star Wars defense system up.
And John and the princess are reunited, and then we're reminded that all of this was just an effort for the CIA to encroach on Parmastani territory and establish a satellite monitoring system. And that is the end of Gymkata.
Mission accomplished.
Yay! Yay, CIA.
Oh, yeah, that I was not expecting that to happen at the end, to be honest. Like that title card to pop up. Like, I thought he was gonna ask to marry the princess.
Yeah.
But no, he follows his orders, Kurt Thomas. He's a true patriot.
He is.
He is an American hero.
Yeah.
Also rest in peace, Kurt Thomas. He passed away in 2020.
Yes.
All right, that's it for Gymkata. Matt, it was a lot of fun talking Gymkata with you. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. I'm glad we all agreed it is a masterpiece.
It is a lot of fun.
It was wrong to have it on a show about bad movies. We all agreed on that.
I mean, we watched RoboCop for this podcast. So.
We did watch RoboCop.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's definitely as good as RoboCop.
Yes.
For sure.
We've watched two good movies for that.
Now you've watched. Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah. Do you want to let our listeners know where they could find you? Anything else you want to plug before you head out?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, Screen Crush. I'm writing every day at screencrush.com, and you can follow me on Twitter. It used to be called @MattSinger, and I'm on what else? Blue Sky, and that also Matt Singer, I believe, is I think I'm on there way more these days. Opposable Thumbs, the book that's sadly not about Gymkata, but is about Siskel and Ebert. That comes out on October 24th.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks again for coming. A lot of fun.
My pleasure. Yakmala to you and your families. And,
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yakmala one and all.
Thank you for hanging out, Matt.
Yep. And so we are going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to some ads to pay those bills, and we will be right back. And welcome back. And now it's time to get into our third segment. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you already know it's Movie Grid time. If you're listening at home, on your podcast, or in your car, doesn't have to be at home, where the fuck you are. We're doing Movie Grid. MovieGrid.io is the website we're on. Check it out. It's kind of cool. But we will be doing a movie grid. So I will tell you what the categories are. We have going across the top, we have Anya Taylor-Joy and Ray Fiennes. Then we have Anya Taylor-Joy and Samuel L. Jackson. And then Anya Taylor-Joy released from 2015 to 2023. That's the top row. Then we have Liam Neeson, Ray Fiennes, Liam Neeson, Samuel L. Jackson, and Liam Neeson released 2015 to 2023. And then we have Tilda Swinton, Ray Fiennes, Tilda Swinton, Samuel L. Jackson, and Tilda Swinton released from 2015 to 2023. All right, who wants to start first? Who started first the last time?
I think I did.
All right, so Mark, why don't you kick us off? Where are you going?
I think I'll take a very easy one just to get it off. I'll take Anya Taylor-Joy, release 2015 to 2023, and I'll take the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Okay, yeah, gotta bust that first nut.
Yeah.
All right, there it is. Super Mario Brothers the movie, 14.5%. Well,
nice,
lower than I was expecting
for $1 billion movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of recency bias in this, so I'm shocked a little.
Sure, right? Yeah, usually. My guess was Emma, period, and that was an 8%.
Oh, nice. Yeah. My guess would have been The Witch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thoroughbred's also a good one. All right, Dan, what about you? Where are you going with this one?
All right, so I'm gonna go Tilda Swinton. Release date. Talking about recency bias, I'm going to go Asteroid City. Just came out.
Alrighty. Asteroid City. Wes Anderson film. 8.7.
Wow. Yeah, again, odd.
Yeah. My guess was Trainwreck at 1.5%. I did not get 9 out of 9 on this, though. I will tell you that.
Oh, you missed one. Okay.
I did.
Yeah, there's one that I am, or two that I'm a little blank on. But remind me of the rules. Am I allowed to ask Dan for help on something?
How about you pick one, and then Dan can veto it if he thinks... there's really no rules. Let's just try and get this 9 out of 9. I'm not going to be a stickler for this.
No problem. Because I'm thinking, Dan, Tilda Swinton, Samuel L. Jackson, Endgame. Was she in...
Yeah, she shows up when...
I can't remember if it's Endgame or Infinity War.
Endgame. Because the Hulk goes to get the time stone from her.
Yeah, and he's... And Fury's in that movie, so...
I believe so, yes. So that should count.
Yep.
Is that the only movie they're in together?
It might be the only.
I don't know.
All right.
I guess... Right, because I guess she was introduced in the show, right?
In the first
Doctor Strange. She was and he's not in Doctor Strange?
No.
If you gun to my head, I would have said Samuel L. Jackson is in every single Marvel movie, but I guess not.
He's not in a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
Right. How many are there now? 30? He's probably been in 10, so a third of them, I guess. I don't know.
I guess I just thought he was in all of them because he was the link through all. But all right, Dan, what about you? Next one.
I'm gonna continue. I think would this finish out the? No, we've only done one Anya Taylor-Joy, right?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go the Anya Taylor-Joy Samuel L. Jackson connection is Glass.
Thank God.
Yep, that's what I put. 100%. Must be the only one.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, Mark, where are you going?
I want to finish off the Anya Taylor-Joy. The chef movie. Is it? What is the name of that?
The Menu.
The Menu. Yeah.
That has to be the only one as well, I imagine.
I believe it is. Another Hundy. All right.
When you said I'm going to go to Anya Taylor-Joy, I was like, please don't take the Ray Fiennes one. Please, that's the only one that I know left on hers.
All right. So that finishes off the Anya Taylor-Joy row. Dan, where are you going next?
All right. So let's do Liam Neeson, Samuel L. Jackson, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
89.5%.
Okay. I feel like they might have been in another movie together. It's because those guys have been around for a long time. So
yeah,
but I can't think of anything else.
I can't think of anything either. Mark, what about you?
Yes, I'm going Liam Neeson in 2015 to 2023. I have a feeling that Taken 2 came out in that time frame.
I want to say because wasn't Taken like 2008,
12 maybe. The first Taken, I was still in college when it came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like Taken 2 had to have come out more recently than 2015.
Yeah,
but I can't.
That was probably.
You can't help.
Yeah. I can't. How many Takens are there? There's just a third Taken film.
There is, yes.
Is he in that one?
I think he's in all of them, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, would the better odds be do Taken 3 because it would have had to have they weren't pumping those out?
It would obviously be a better answer because this goes till 2023. So as long as Taken so I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I'm just for some reason I'm just blanking on Liam Neeson.
Well, because he's only doing those action movies that are forgettable. The January-February movies.
Yeah.
Fuck you, it's January Liam Neeson movies.
Yep. Because the problem's going to be is if Dan has an answer for one of the other two squares, I do not have an answer for the two I'm going to leave behind.
Okay.
So that might need to be a group effort for the third one.
Whatever works best for you.
I don't want to be the one to get it wrong. Liam Neeson movies.
Do you want me to tag in?
You can tag in.
Right.
Yeah.
Mark, is that all right? So we're going with Liam Neeson 2015 to 2023?
Unless if you know one of the other two. Because I don't know either of those. So
I also know a Liam Neeson Ralph Fiennes movie. So whichever one.
Yeah, it'll give me more time to think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me do the Ralph Fiennes Liam Neeson one because I feel like that might be a little bit more difficult. I'm gonna go Clash of the Titans.
Ooh.
Release the Kraken.
Nice job. 5.3%. I went with the obvious answer for that one. Schindler's List.
Oh yeah, that
didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
And arguably the better movie.
Yes, I think you're not going out on a limb that says that Schindler's List was better than the Sam Worthington starring Clash of the Titans.
There's someone out there who will disagree with that.
There's always somebody that disagrees.
Do you have Tilda Swinton, Ralph Fiennes, Dan?
I don't. That's the only one I don't know.
That's the one I missed, and it was it's an obvious answer. Well, it's not quite obvious, but when I found out, I was like, oh, I should have known that.
I might get shit for this, but I don't know these movies that well. Was Tilda Swinton in a Harry Potter movie?
I don't think so.
I will say no.
Okay, because that would have been the only guess I have for that connection.
Yeah, since that one's going to be a tough one, why don't we just take the shot and put Taken 3 in that poll here and just see?
Sure.
It's going to be close. I think that was like 2014.
Yeah.
It's a miss. It's okay. It's a miss.
Yeah.
All right.
What obvious movie am I missing there?
I don't think there is an obvious movie.
Yeah.
I put The Commuter. I think that was 2018. And I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. That's actually the one that's the one I remembered too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That movie.
So I feel like this is what we should have gotten.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
Fucking great Budapest.
The Grand Budapest Hotel was the obvious answer from Ray Fiennes and Tilda Swinton.
Fuck, that's right.
Okay.
I feel like I had the same reaction you possibly had, and pops up on the screen.
For some reason, I thought Tilda Swinton and Ray Fiennes were in Only Lovers Left Alive together, but that was Tom Hiddleston, I believe, not Ray Fiennes.
Okay.
So, egg on my face.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. That
corner was tough.
Yeah.
I will take an 8 out of 9 for this list.
Yeah.
We got some pretty good low percentage answers too. I like that.
I'm trying to see if there's another non-obvious Tilda Swinton Ray Fiennes because it was only like 89%, but I don't know what the answer is.
It might be some movie from the 20 years ago or something that they were
could be
both in together.
Both been around for a while.
Yeah. So not a bad showing.
No.
Oh yeah, I'll take 8 out of 9.
Yeah. Got 5.3 Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, that's the best one.
We did have a couple 100%ers in there, but
I mean, what else you can do?
Yeah, it's not like, and you mentioned it before, and it's not like the sports grids.
Yeah,
where there are usually more. I can't think of a time there's ever only been one answer for a sports grid.
Yeah,
right. So it is what it is. Not everyone's been around that long.
What is off script?
I don't know. You guys want to try another hand at this one? Movie grid.
Sure. Why not?
That one's.
Yeah.
Is this a totally different grid?
Yep.
Okay.
So,
the off script seems to be directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off script, is this one's a little more difficult, I think.
That might be tough. I don't know directors that well.
Yeah. Well, let's give this one a shot. We could cut this out too, and just have one. But let's go. So the grid for this one is Denzel Washington, released from 2000 to 2010. Denzel Washington, Christopher Walken. Denzel Washington, genre drama. Second row is Tom Hanks, 2000 to 2010. Tom Hanks, Christopher Walken, and Tom Hanks, genre drama. And then De Niro, 2000 to 2010. De Niro, Christopher Walken, and De Niro, genre drama. All right. Dan, what about you? Start it off for us.
All right, so I'll do Robert De Niro drama. You have to go Godfather 2, right?
Godfather Part 2. Yep, 9.2. Hello.
Oh, nice.
I did do this one as well. What was mine?
Yo.
My guess was Marvin's Room, 0.3%.
0.3%?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really good.
All right, Mark.
Yeah, let's do Denzel Washington drama, and let's go for an older one. Let's go Glory.
Ooh, that's a good one. 4%. That's pretty good. I put The Pelican Brief, 1.3%. All right. Dan, where are you going next?
Tom Hanks drama, Castaway.
10.3. This one was my favorite pick of the ones I put.
Okay.
Mazes and Monsters, 0.3%.
Oh, that was like his first ever movie.
That was the dungeon. That was a Dungeons and Dragons anti Dungeons and Dragons propaganda movie.
He climbs the World Trade Center and he's gonna jump off. Don't do it. You won't level up if you drop.
All right, Mark, where you going?
We'll go Denzel, released 2000 to 2010. We'll go John Q.
Yep, that's the one I picked. John Q.
I wasn't confident that Remember the Titans was not in that thing to pick an obvious one. I think it is.
It is, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's post 2000.
Yeah, I wasn't confident enough
Yeah,
that it wasn't like 99.
it's close. It's probably right on that 2001, 2002, because I think we were in college at the time.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, where are you going next?
So one of them was Denzel Walken, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm going to go with one of my favorite Denzel movies, Man on Fire.
Yep, that's 100%er.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was the only one for those two, so that's why I left it out of the left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Where are you going, Mark?
Well,
Got 4 boxes left.
yeah, the Hanks De Niro first row. I think this would be in this time frame. Dan can nix if he wants. Robert De Niro, Anger Management.
I don't think Hanks is in Anger Management.
No, I meant De Niro. I said De Niro. Sorry, I meant De Niro.
De Niro what?
Anger Management.
Was it a time period? Is that
Yeah,
where you're
between 2000 and 2010.
I don't think he's in Anger. I think you're thinking of Jack Nicholson.
No, the one with Sandler.
Yeah, that's Jack Nicholson.
Is it Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was the time period? 2000 to 2010.
2010. Yep.
Sorry.
I think that's within the time period, but it's not the right actor.
It's not the right
Yeah.
actor. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I think I have.
Tom Hanks' Polar Express for the first category.
It should be.
Yeah.
9.2%. That's pretty good. I picked The Terminal.
I hope you have all the walk-in category, Dan.
Walken and we got Walken and Denzel.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Walken and
Hanks and De Niro.
Walken and Hanks, Walken and De Niro. Just so you know, Tom Hanks and Walken is another 100%er.
So there's only one.
That's only one answer.
Okay. So are we passing the De Niro 2000 to 2010?
It's your turn. If you want to do that, you can.
Yeah. I was just saying I don't know if I have an answer for either of the walk-ins. That's why I was hoping you had one.
So De Niro, I'm going to go Meet the Fockers.
For 2000, 2010?
Yeah.
Solid answer. Yep. 44%.
Okay. Not too bad.
Yeah. I put Righteous Kill.
Righteous Kill.
That was him and Pacino.
Oh, their second get together?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's
Two left on the board. Tom Hanks and Christopher Walken, and De Niro, Christopher Walken. One of them is a 100%er. And one of them is close to 100%.
I think I have one.
Okay.
You're gonna have to answer one of them. So if you want to take the one you think,
Well, Mark, if you want to yield the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if he has one, if Dan has one, let him guess that one because we need to think on both of them. So
Sure.
So I have one.
Okay.
The Walken Hanks, Catch Me If You Can, because I think Walken plays DiCaprio's father, and Hanks is the one chasing after him.
You are correct. That's
Cool.
the 100.
Okay.
I was trying to think De Niro walking anyway. So
Okay.
Huh.
So I have the obvious answer, and
For
I
De
picked
Niro
it
Walken.
for De Niro Walken, and it's at an 89.7%,
Oh no.
and it's 70s. I'll give you a hint. Yeah, it's 70s.
Do you want to take a guess, Mark?
When he says 70s, first thing that pops in my head is Taxi Driver, but I don't think that's.
That was the 1970s.
Yeah, I mean.
I would say King of Comedy,
Okay.
because I think that was also late 70s.
I'm not very confident in my answer. So if we want to go with Dan's,
Yeah.
And you tell me, it's your pick. Where are we going? You going
we'll
King
go Kings of
Comedy or
Comedy. Yeah, we'll go Kings of Comedy.
Comedy? King of Comedy.
Nope.
Is incorrect. The
Wow.
obvious answer is
The
The
Departed.
Deer Hunter. The
Ah.
Deer Hunter.
Okay.
Deer Hunter.
That's what I meant. What's that? Oh, The Irishman is
The Irishman.
I guess that's the most recent.
So Training Day was the most obvious, not the most obvious, the most used Denzel
Yeah.
20 to 2010s.
Yeah, and I was trying to avoid a Toy Story for Hanks. I was trying to
Sure.
see if we could get a low percentage
Yeah.
for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we missed one there.
Yeah,
Yep.
8 of 9 there. That's good.
Cool.
Pretty good.
So that's our show this week. I want to thank again Matt Singer from Screen Crush for coming on. Had a great time talking his favorite movie of all time. He even knows the scimitar on it from it. So Gymkata, a lot of fun, good time. Hit us up on all our socials. They Call This a Movie on TikTok, TikTamPod on Instagram, Threads, X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on there. All those places, just TikTamPod, TCTAM pod. If you want to hit us up on our Gmail, that's tictampod@gmail.com. Give us some recommendations for movies to watch, or generally just say hello. You got 5 minutes to give us any recommendations, or give us a 5-star review and review. Do that on your podcatcher of choice. And that's it. That's all the ways to get a hold of us. All the things you should be doing if you're listening to this show. Stop freeloading and give us a 5-star review. That's it. The director of Gymkata, Robert Klaus. So for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers and Matt Singer, this is Anthony Delvecchio telling Robert Klaus, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Call This a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Call This a Movie.